What if I told you that right now, at this very moment, you are trapped in the universe's ultimate prison? Not by bars or walls, but by something far more fundamental, a cosmic speed limit that governs every single thing that has ever existed or ever will exist. Every photon of light streaming from your screen, every thought racing through your neurons, every beat of your heart, all of it is shackled by one immutable law. Nothing can move faster than 299,792,458 meters per second. The speed of light isn't just a number. It's the universe's ultimate boundary. And here's what will absolutely blow your mind. If this limit didn't exist, reality as we know, it would collapse into something so alien, so incomprehensible, that the word existence itself would lose all meaning. But what if we could break free? What if, in some parallel universe, nothing had a speed limit at all? Prepare to have everything you think you know about space, time, causality, and your very existence completely shattered. Before we dive into this mind-bending journey that will fundamentally change how you see reality, smash that like button if you're ready to have your worldview completely revolutionized. Hit subscribe because we're about to explore concepts that most people will never encounter. And tell me in the comments, what country are you watching from? And what time is it where you are? I love connecting with our global audience as we explore these cosmic mysteries together. To understand the profound implications of a universe without speed limits, we first need to grasp just how deeply the speed of light is woven into the very fabric of reality. And here's your first mind-blown moment. The speed of light has nothing to do with light. That's right. When Albert Einstein published his special theory of relativity in 1905, he wasn't really talking about light at all. He was describing something far more fundamental, the speed at which cause and effect can propagate through the universe. Light just happens to be the most obvious thing that travels at this cosmic speed limit. Think of it like this. Imagine reality is a vast ocean, and the speed of light is how fast waves can move through this ocean. Every interaction, every force, every piece of information that flows from one point to another must travel through this medium at exactly this speed. No faster, no slower. This is why physicists now call it c, not for light, but for the fundamental constant that governs how reality itself operates. But here's where it gets truly bizarre. This speed limit doesn't just affect how fast things can move. It literally creates space and time as we experience them. In 1908, mathematician Hermann Minkowski, Einstein's former professor, made a shocking declaration. Space by itself and time by itself are doomed to fade away into mere shadows, and only a kind of union of the two will preserve an independent reality. What Minkowski realized is that space and time aren't separate things at all. They're two faces of a single entity called spacetime. And the speed of light is what weaves them together. When you move through space, you actually move through time at a different rate. When gravity bends space, it also bends time. The faster you approach the speed of light, the more time dilates around you. Here's an analogy that will make this crystal clear. Think of space-time like a stretched rubber sheet. Every object with mass creates a depression in this sheet. The speed of light is like the maximum speed at which ripples can move across the sheet's surface. These ripples are what we call gravitational waves, literally the fabric of space-time itself vibrating. In 2015, the LIGO detector first observed these gravitational waves, created when two black holes collided 1.3 billion years ago. The waves traveled across the universe at exactly the speed of light, confirming Einstein's predictions with breathtaking precision. But here's what should terrify you. Those waves carried information about an event that happened when Earth was barely developing complex life forms. The universe's speed limit meant it took over 1 billion years for us to learn about this cosmic catastrophe. But what if there was no speed limit? What if information, matter, energy, everything, could move instantaneously from one point to another? Hold that thought, because what comes next will completely rewrite your understanding of cause and effect. What if I told you that the speed of light is the only thing preventing the universe from descending into complete chaos? Not just physical chaos, but logical, causal chaos, where effects could happen before their causes, where the very concept of before and after becomes meaningless. Welcome to the causality paradox, and this is where your understanding of reality is about to get completely demolished. In our universe with its cosmic speed limit, events happen in a logical sequence. You flip a light switch, and then the light turns on. You drop a ball, and then it hits the ground. Cause precedes effect, and this sequence is the same for all observers in the universe, a fundamental principle called causality. But remove the speed limit, and something horrifying happens. The order of events becomes relative. What looks like cause and effect to you might appear completely reversed to someone else. Imagine watching a movie where the explosion happens before someone lights the fuse, where the echo comes before the shout, where the shadow appears before the object casting it. Here's a mind-bending thought experiment proposed by physicists. In a universe without speed limits, imagine you're on Earth and you instantaneously send a message to someone on Alpha Centauri, 4.37 light years away. They receive it instantly and send an instantaneous reply. But here's the twist. Due to the relative motion between Earth and Alpha Centauri, that reply could arrive on Earth before you sent your original message. This isn't science fiction. This is what the mathematics of relativity tells us would happen. The Italian physicist Guido Fubini worked out the mathematics in the 1960s, showing that faster-than-light communication would inevitably create what he called causal loops, closed curves in spacetime where events circle back and influence their own causes. Think of it like this. Imagine reality is a river flowing from past to future. The speed of light is what keeps this river flowing in one direction. Remove that limit, and the river becomes a chaotic whirlpool where water flows backward, forward, and sideways all at once. Past and future become meaningless concepts. But the horror doesn't stop there. In 1988, physicist Kip Thorne at Caltech demonstrated mathematically that faster than light travel would allow you to construct a causality, a paradox so powerful it could theoretically destroy the logical structure of the universe itself. Here's how it would work. You travel faster than light to a distant star, then return to Earth, arriving before you left. You then prevent yourself from making the original journey. But if you never made the journey, how could you have returned to prevent it? The universe would face a logical contradiction, so fundamental that reality itself might have to choose between multiple incompatible versions of events. Some physicists, like Stephen Hawking, proposed a chronology protection conjecture, the idea that the laws of physics conspire to prevent such paradoxes. But in a universe without speed limits, there would be no protection. Reality would be at the mercy of every possible paradox, every logical contradiction, every impossible loop of cause and effect. And here's what should keep you awake at night. We're about to discover that causality is just the beginning of what breaks down in a universe without limits. Prepare yourself for a revelation that will fundamentally alter how you perceive the nature of existence itself. Space and time aren't just things that exist in the universe. They are the universe. And without a cosmic speed limit, both would cease to exist in any meaningful way. Here's your next mind-blown moment. Distance and duration are not fixed properties of reality. They're emergent phenomena that arise from the speed limit itself. Remove that limit, and space and time don't just become infinite. They become undefined, meaningless concepts. Let me paint you a picture of what this means. In our speed-limited universe, when you walk across a room, you're not just moving through space, you're trading space for time. The faster you move through space, the slower you move through time. This relationship, first described by Einstein's teacher Hermann Minkowski in 1908, is so fundamental that it's built into the very geometry of reality. But here's where it gets absolutely mind-bending. The speed of light isn't just the fastest speed possible. It's the speed at which space and time are perfectly balanced. At the speed of light, space becomes zero and time becomes infinite from the perspective of the moving object. This is why photons, particles of light, experience no time at all. From a photon's perspective, it's created and destroyed in the same instant, regardless of how far it travels through space. Now imagine removing this cosmic speed limit entirely. What happens to space and time? The answer is both beautiful and terrifying. They collapse into a single, undifferentiated point. Every location in space becomes identical to every other location. Every moment in time becomes identical to every other moment. The universe doesn't just become small, it becomes dimensionless. Think of it like this. Imagine you're looking at a photograph. The speed of light is like the resolution of that photograph. It determines how much detail you can see, how many distinct points exist in the image. Increase the resolution to infinity, and you don't get infinite detail. You get a solid, uniform color where all points become indistinguishable from each other. This concept was first explored mathematically by physicist John Wheeler at Princeton University in the 1950s. Wheeler realized that space and time emerge from more fundamental processes happening at the quantum level, processes that are themselves limited by the speed of light. Remove that limit, and these processes collapse. But here's what will absolutely blow your mind. This collapse wouldn't be gradual or partial. It would be instantaneous and complete. The moment any single particle in the universe could move faster than light, the entire structure of spacetime would become undefined. Every point in space would be connected to every other point with zero distance between them. Every moment in time would be connected to every other moment with zero duration between them. Imagine trying to give someone directions in such a universe. Go to the place that's everywhere at the time that's always. It's not just impossible. It's logically meaningless. The British physicist Roger Penrose spent decades working out the mathematical implications of this collapse. In his 1989 book, The Emperor's New Mind, he showed that consciousness itself depends on the existence of distinct spatial and temporal locations. Without space and time, there would be no here or there, no now or then, and therefore no way for information to be organized into anything resembling thought or experience. But we're just scratching the surface of the catastrophe. Because in a universe without speed limits, it's not just space and time that break down, it's the very concept of separate, distinct objects. What if I told you that your existence as a separate, individual being depends entirely on the universe's speed limit? That without it, the boundary between you and not you would dissolve so completely that the very concept of individual objects would become meaningless? This is perhaps the most disturbing implication of a universe without speed limits, and it goes to the very heart of what makes reality real. In our speed-limited universe, objects maintain their identity through what physicists call causal isolation. The atoms in your body interact with each other much more strongly than they interact with atoms in distant stars because of the fundamental limit on how fast information and forces can travel. Your thoughts are yours because the neural networks in your brain are causally connected to each other, but relatively isolated from neural networks in other brains. Think of it like this. Imagine everyone on Earth is connected by telephone, but each call takes exactly 1 second to connect. This delay creates natural boundaries. Your conversation with someone in the same room feels immediate and direct, while your conversation with someone on the other side of the world feels delayed and separate. These delays create the structure that allows distinct conversations to exist. But what happens when you remove all delays? When every phone call connects instantly, with zero lag time? Suddenly, everyone is talking to everyone else simultaneously. There are no separate conversations anymore, just one massive, chaotic blend of voices where individual thoughts and words become indistinguishable from the noise. This is exactly what would happen to reality in a universe without speed limits. Every particle would interact with every other particle instantly and with equal strength. The electron in your brain would be just as connected to electrons in distant galaxies as it is to electrons in neighboring atoms. The boundaries that define objects, bodies, planets, stars, and galaxies would simply cease to exist. The quantum physicist David Bohm explored this idea in the 1960s through his concept of implicate order. Bohm realized that what we perceive as separate objects are actually localized patterns in an underlying field of quantum information. But these patterns can only exist because the speed of light creates natural boundaries in how information flows through the field. Remove those boundaries, and the patterns collapse. Instead of distinct waves on an ocean, you get a perfectly uniform, motionless surface. Or more accurately, you get a surface where every point is simultaneously at every possible height, creating a paradoxical state that exists and doesn't exist at the same time. Here's your next mind-blown moment. In such a universe, the distinction between matter and energy would also disappear. Einstein's famous equation E equals mc shows us that matter and energy are interchangeable, connected by the speed of light squared. But this relationship only makes sense when c, the speed of light, has a finite value. Set c to infinity, and the equation becomes meaningless. Matter and energy become the same thing, indistinguishable from each other. But the implications go even deeper. In 1964, physicist Peter Higgs proposed that particles acquire mass through their interaction with an energy field that permeates all of space, the Higgs field. This field was finally detected at the Large Hadron Collider in 2012, confirming one of the most important predictions in modern physics. But here's the crucial point. The Higgs mechanism only works because particles interact with the field at a finite rate, limited by the speed of light. In a universe without speed limits, particles would interact with the Higgs field instantaneously and infinitely strongly. The result? All particles would either have infinite mass or zero mass, with nothing in between. This means that in a universe without speed limits, there would be no atoms. No molecules, no chemistry, no biology, no planets, no stars. Just an undifferentiated soup of energy where nothing can form stable structures or maintain distinct identities. And we haven't even gotten to the most mind-bending part yet. What happens to the forces that hold reality together? Here's what will absolutely shatter your understanding of how reality works. Every force in the universe, gravity, electromagnetism, the nuclear forces that hold atoms together, all of them depend on the cosmic speed limit to function. Remove that limit, and the forces don't just become stronger or weaker. They become paradoxical, self-contradictory, and ultimately impossible. Let's start with gravity, the most familiar force, and prepare to have your mind completely blown by what you're about to learn. In our universe, gravity propagates at the speed of light. When the sun suddenly vanished, hypothetically, Earth wouldn't feel the gravitational change for about 8 minutes, the time it takes for the gravitational information to travel from the sun to Earth at light speed. This delay is crucial because it allows gravity to behave consistently with the rest of physics. But remove the speed limit, and gravity becomes instantaneous across any distance. The moment any mass anywhere in the universe moves, every other mass everywhere instantly feels the gravitational change. This creates what physicist Steven Weinberg at the University of Texas called a gravitational paradox in his 1972 work on quantum field theory. Here's the paradox. If gravitational effects are instantaneous, then the gravitational field at any point depends on the instantaneous positions of all masses in the universe. But those positions are constantly changing, and each change instantly affects the gravitational field everywhere else, which affects the motion of all other masses, which changes the gravitational field again, which affects all positions again, creating an infinite loop of instantaneous cause and effect. Think of it like this. Imagine you're in a room full of people, and every time someone moves, everyone else must instantly respond by moving in a specific way. But their movements cause everyone else to move again, instantly, which causes more movements, and so on. The result isn't coordinated motion, it's complete paralysis, because the system can never settle on any consistent state. The electromagnetic force faces an even more bizarre fate. In our speed-limited universe, electromagnetic fields carry information about charges at light speed, creating the beautiful, stable patterns we see in everything from radio waves to the aurora borealis. But make electromagnetic interactions instantaneous, and something extraordinary happens. Every charged particle in the universe becomes instantly aware of every other charged particle, regardless of distance. The electron in your brain would instantly feel the electromagnetic field of every electron in the Andromeda Galaxy, 2.5 million light-years away. The result would be electromagnetic chaos on an unimaginable scale. Every charged particle would try to respond to every other charged particle simultaneously, creating oscillations so intense and rapid that they would make atomic structure impossible. The delicate electromagnetic bonds that hold molecules together would be overwhelmed by the infinite electromagnetic noise from every other charge in the universe. But here's where it gets truly mind-bending. The nuclear forces that hold atomic nuclei together face a different kind of impossible paradox. These forces are described by quantum field theory, where particles interact by exchanging virtual particles called bosons. The strong nuclear force exchanges gluons. The weak nuclear force exchanges W and Z bosons. In quantum field theory, these virtual particles exist for very brief periods of time, governed by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. They can borrow energy from the vacuum, but they must pay it back quickly, and the speed of light determines how quickly. Remove the speed limit, and virtual particles could borrow infinite energy and never pay it back. The quantum vacuum would become unstable, potentially creating infinite numbers of particle-antiparticle pairs spontaneously. The universe would fill with virtual particles that never disappear, making reality itself undefined. Nobel Prize winner Frank Wilczek calculated in the 1990s that such a scenario would make the concept of empty space meaningless. Space would be infinitely dense with virtual particles, making it impossible to distinguish between something and nothing. But perhaps most disturbing of all is what happens to the information that holds reality together. And this next revelation will completely redefine how you think about existence itself. Prepare yourself for perhaps the most mind-shattering revelation yet. Reality isn't made of matter or energy. It's made of information. And in a universe without speed limits, information itself becomes impossible, leading to what physicists call an information holocaust that would erase not just the present, but the very possibility of any meaningful state of existence. This concept emerged from one of the most profound discoveries in modern physics, made by physicist John Wheeler in the 1980s. Wheeler coined the phrase "it from bit," the revolutionary idea that every physical thing ultimately derives from binary choices, quantum yes or no answers to questions posed by the universe to itself. Think of it like this. When you flip a coin, you're not just determining whether it lands heads or tails, you're actually creating information. Before the flip, there was uncertainty. After the flip, there's knowledge. This creation of information is what Wheeler realized drives all physical processes in the universe. But here's the crucial part that will blow your mind. Information can only exist when there are distinct, separate states that can be compared. In quantum mechanics, particles exist in superpositions, multiple possible states simultaneously, until they interact with other particles. This interaction forces the universe to choose one specific state, creating information in the process. But these interactions take time. Specifically, they're limited by the speed of light. This delay is what allows distinct states to exist in the first place. Remove the speed limit, and interactions become instantaneous and infinite in scope. Here's what happens. Every particle would instantly interact with every other particle in the universe simultaneously. There would be no distinct states anymore, because every possible state would be realized at the same time. Instead of information, you'd have what mathematician Gregory Chaitin calls maximum entropy, perfect randomness where no pattern, no structure, and no information can exist. The implications are absolutely mind-boggling. In 1995, physicist Rolf Landauer at IBM proved that information is physical. It requires energy and time to process, store, and communicate. His principle, called Landauer's principle, shows that erasing one bit of information produces a minimum amount of heat, directly connecting information theory to thermodynamics. But in a universe without speed limits, there would be no minimum energy cost for processing information because processing would be instantaneous. This sounds like it might be good, infinite computational power. But actually, it creates a paradox that destroys the very concept of computation. Here's why. Computation requires sequential steps. First this happens, then that happens, then something else. But without time delays between steps, all computations would happen at once, producing not results, but contradiction. Every possible answer to every possible question would be generated simultaneously, making no answer meaningful. This connects to a profound insight by physicist Seth Lloyd at MIT in his 2006 book, Programming the Universe. Lloyd showed that the universe itself is essentially a quantum computer, processing information at the fundamental level of reality. The cosmic speed limit is what allows this cosmic computer to function. It's the universe's clock speed, determining how fast reality can process information about itself. Remove that clock speed limit, and the cosmic computer doesn't just run faster, it crashes completely. The universe would attempt to process infinite information instantaneously, creating what computer scientists call a race condition on a cosmic scale. But here's the most disturbing part. This information holocaust wouldn't just prevent new information from forming. It would retroactively erase all information that had ever existed. Past, present, and future would collapse into a single meaningless point where nothing had ever happened and nothing could ever happen. The mathematician Kurt Gödel proved in his incompleteness theorems that even the most basic logical systems contain statements that cannot be determined to be true or false within that system. In a universe without speed limits, these undecidable statements would all be decided simultaneously in contradictory ways, creating logical paradoxes so fundamental that reality itself would become self-contradictory. And this brings us to perhaps the most terrifying question of all. What would happen to consciousness in such a universe? What if I told you that your ability to think, to experience, to be conscious at all depends entirely on the universe's speed limit? That consciousness isn't just affected by the collapse of spacetime. It's the first casualty in a universe without limits, disappearing so completely that the very concept of experience becomes impossible. This is where the philosophical meets the physical in ways that will fundamentally change how you understand your own existence. Consciousness, according to the leading theories in neuroscience and physics, emerges from information processing, specifically from the integration of information across different parts of a system over time. Your brain takes sensory inputs, memories, and internal states, processes them through neural networks, and integrates them into a unified experience of being you. But here's the crucial part that most people don't realize. This process requires time. Not just any time, but specific timing relationships between different parts of your brain. When you see a red apple, different neural networks process the color, shape, texture, and your memories of apples. These processes happen at different speeds and must be synchronized to create your unified perception. This synchronization is governed by what neuroscientist Christoph Koch calls temporal binding, the brain's ability to tag related information with precise timing signatures so they can be bound together into coherent experiences. But this binding can only work because neural signals travel at finite speeds, creating the timing differences that allow the brain to distinguish between different pieces of information. In a universe without speed limits, neural signals would propagate instantaneously. Every neuron in your brain would fire simultaneously, creating not thoughts, but chaos. There would be no way to distinguish between a memory of yesterday and a sensation from now. No way to separate your thoughts from random noise. No way to bind different perceptions into coherent experiences. Think of it like this. Imagine your consciousness is like a symphony orchestra. Each musician, neuron, plays their part at precisely the right time, creating beautiful, coherent music, thoughts, and experiences. The speed limit is like the conductor's baton, ensuring that different sections come in at the right moments. Remove that timing, and you don't get faster music. You get cacophony where every instrument plays every note simultaneously. But the horror goes deeper. In 1994, mathematician Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff proposed that consciousness emerges from quantum processes in the brain's microtubules, tiny structures inside neurons that can maintain quantum coherence for brief periods. Their theory suggests that consciousness arises when these quantum states collapse, when the superposition of multiple possible states resolves into one actual state. But this collapse process is governed by the fundamental constants of physics, including the speed of light. In a universe without speed limits, quantum collapse wouldn't happen gradually and selectively. It would happen everywhere, all at once, infinitely fast. Instead of the delicate, orchestrated collapse that creates conscious experience, you'd have an instantaneous, universal collapse that destroys the quantum coherence necessary for consciousness to emerge. Even more disturbing is what this means for the continuity of consciousness, your sense of being the same person over time. This continuity depends on what philosophers call psychological continuity, the idea that your current self is connected to your past selves through memory and causal relationships. But in a universe without speed limits, there would be no causal relationships, no temporal sequence of mental states, no way for past experiences to influence present thoughts in an organized way. Your sense of being a continuous self would shatter into an infinite number of disconnected moments, each containing all possible thoughts simultaneously. The philosopher Garrick Parfit explored similar scenarios in his 1984 work, Reasons and Persons, asking what happens to personal identity when the normal causal connections between mental states break down. His conclusion was deeply unsettling. Without these connections, the very concept of being a person becomes meaningless. But here's what should truly terrify you. Some physicists believe that consciousness might be fundamental to the universe itself, that the collapse of quantum states requires conscious observation to occur. If this is true, then in a universe without speed limits, consciousness wouldn't just be impossible. Its absence would prevent the universe from having any definite properties at all. The result would be a reality that exists in permanent superposition, where every possible state of every possible system occurs simultaneously without ever resolving into actual experience. It would be a universe of infinite potential with zero actuality, a cosmic void of unrealized possibilities. And this brings us to the most personal part of our journey. How does this impossible universe reflect back on your own existence here in our speed-limited reality? Right now, as you process these words, something absolutely miraculous is happening. Something so improbable, so perfectly calibrated, that it should make you stop and marvel at your own existence. You are conscious, aware, experiencing this moment, and that is only possible because we live in a universe with one very specific, very precise speed limit. Let me put this in perspective that will completely change how you see your own life. The speed of light isn't just a random number that physics happened to settle on. It's precisely the value it needs to be, not faster, not slower, to allow complexity, consciousness, and ultimately you to exist. If the speed of light were just slightly faster, time dilation effects would be weaker, making stable atomic structures difficult to maintain. If it were slightly slower, the universe would age so slowly that complex chemistry might never have had time to evolve into life. But it's exactly the right speed to allow 13.8 billion years of cosmic evolution to produce stars, planets, chemistry, biology, and consciousness. Think about what this means for your existence right now. Every thought you're thinking depends on precisely timed electrical signals racing through your neurons at speeds that are perfectly calibrated to the cosmic speed limit. Every heartbeat relies on coordinated muscle contractions that depend on the finite speed of nerve impulses. Every breath you take involves complex chemical reactions that unfold at rates determined by how fast molecular information can propagate. You are not just living in a universe with a speed limit. You are a pattern created by that speed limit. Your consciousness is a beautiful consequence of information processing at precisely the right speed to create coherent experience. Your memories exist because neural changes take time to propagate and stabilize. Your personality persists because psychological states can maintain causal continuity across time. But here's what will absolutely blow your mind. You're not just a passive recipient of this cosmic gift. According to quantum mechanics, consciousness plays an active role in collapsing quantum possibilities into actual reality. Every conscious observation you make helps determine which of the infinite possible states of the universe actually becomes real. This means that your awareness, your thoughts, your experiences are literally participating in the creation of reality moment by moment. You're not just observing the universe, you're helping to actualize it, to bring it into definite existence through the act of conscious observation. The physicist John Wheeler realized this profound connection between consciousness and reality when he proposed what he called the participatory universe, a reality that exists only through the ongoing interaction between mind and matter, observer and observed. Your consciousness isn't separate from the physical universe. It's an integral part of how the universe knows itself. Consider the staggering improbability of your specific existence. Not just the fact that life evolved or that consciousness emerged, but that you, with your particular thoughts, memories, personality, and perspective, came to exist at this exact moment in cosmic history. Every ancestor you've ever had survived long enough to reproduce. Every cosmic event that created the elements in your body unfolded in exactly the right sequence. Every quantum fluctuation that influenced your brain's development occurred at precisely the right time and place. The odds against your existence are so astronomically high that mathematician Ali Benazir calculated them to be approximately 1 in 102,685,000. A number so large that if you wrote one digit per atom in the observable universe, you still wouldn't have enough atoms to write it down. But you're not just improbably lucky, you're necessarily unique. In a universe without speed limits, such specificity would be impossible. Every possible version of you would exist simultaneously, making none of them actually you. The cosmic speed limit is what allows your particular combination of thoughts, experiences, and characteristics to exist as a distinct, individual consciousness. And here's the profound implication. Your existence proves that the universe is not random, not arbitrary, but precisely calibrated to allow consciousness to emerge and thrive. You are living proof that reality is structured in the most remarkable way possible. Complex enough to permit infinite diversity, yet constrained enough to allow stable patterns like life and consciousness to exist. This should fill you with awe, not just for the universe, but for your own role in it. You are not a cosmic accident. You are a cosmic achievement, a beautiful expression of what becomes possible when the universe sets exactly the right limits on itself. Now we're going to descend into the deepest level of reality's foundation, where the very concept of existence meets the mathematics of impossibility. What we've discovered so far is just the surface. At the quantum level, in a universe without speed limits, reality doesn't just break down, it becomes logically impossible, creating paradoxes so fundamental that the word universe loses all meaning. Quantum mechanics tells us that particles don't have definite properties until they're observed or measured. Before measurement, an electron doesn't have a specific position or velocity. It exists in what physicists call a superposition of all possible states simultaneously. This isn't just a limitation of our knowledge. It's a fundamental property of reality. But here's what will absolutely shatter your understanding. This quantum superposition only works because interactions between particles take time. When two particles interact, there's a brief period where the system is deciding which outcome will become real. This decision process is mediated by the exchange of virtual particles, and these exchanges are limited by the speed of light. Remove that limit, and quantum interactions become instantaneous and infinite in scope. Every particle in the universe would instantly interact with every other particle, causing what physicist David Deutsch calls a quantum reality cascade, a chain reaction, where every possible quantum state becomes actual simultaneously. Think of it like this. Imagine quantum reality is like a coin that's spinning in the air. While it's spinning, it's both heads and tails. That's the superposition. When it lands, it becomes definitely one or the other. That's the collapse. But the spinning and landing process takes time. Make the process instantaneous, and the coin never actually lands. It remains permanently both heads and tails, creating a logical contradiction. But the horror runs even deeper. In 1957, physicist Hugh Everett proposed the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, the idea that every quantum measurement splits the universe into multiple branches, each containing a different outcome. In our speed-limited universe, these branches separate gradually, allowing each to develop its own distinct history. Remove the speed limit, and all branches would split and interact simultaneously. Instead of many separate worlds, you'd have one impossibly contradictory world where every possible outcome of every possible quantum event occurs in the same space and time. You would simultaneously exist and not exist, be conscious and unconscious, think every possible thought and no thoughts at all. The mathematician John von Neumann worked out the mathematical framework for quantum measurement in the 1930s, showing that the process requires what he called a measurement chain, a series of quantum interactions that amplify microscopic quantum effects into macroscopic classical outcomes. But this chain only works because each step takes time, allowing information to propagate from one level to the next in sequence. In a universe without speed limits, there would be no measurement chain because there would be no sequence. All levels of reality, quantum, molecular, macroscopic, cosmic, would interact simultaneously, creating what von Neumann called measurement paradox amplification. Every possible outcome of every measurement would be realized at once, making measurement itself impossible. But here's the most mind-bending part. Quantum field theory tells us that empty space isn't empty at all. It's filled with quantum fields fluctuating at the minimum energy levels allowed by quantum mechanics. These fluctuations create virtual particles that pop into existence and annihilate almost instantly. The energy-time uncertainty principle limits how long these virtual particles can exist. More energetic particles exist for shorter times, and this relationship is mediated by fundamental constants, including the speed of light. Remove the speed limit, and virtual particles could exist with infinite energy for infinite time, making the vacuum infinitely dense with infinitely energetic particles. The result would be what physicists call vacuum catastrophe, not just the breakdown of empty space, but the complete inversion of the relationship between something and nothing. The vacuum would become more real than matter itself, creating a universe where existence and non-existence are indistinguishable. Nobel laureate Steven Weinberg calculated in his work on quantum field theory that such a scenario would produce what he called infinite renormalization, a mathematical condition where every calculation gives infinite results, making physics itself impossible. The universe wouldn't just be unpredictable, it would be undescribable by any mathematical framework. And this leads us to perhaps the most disturbing realization of all. In such a universe, the very concept of natural laws would be meaningless. Laws of physics exist because there are consistent relationships between cause and effect, between initial conditions and outcomes. But without the speed limit to create temporal sequence and causal structure, there would be no consistent relationships at all, just infinite, simultaneous contradictory events with no organizing principles. What if I told you that the speed of light is literally what prevents the universe from instantly burning itself to death? That thermodynamics, the science of energy, heat, and entropy, becomes not just impossible but paradoxical in a universe without speed limits? This is where we encounter one of the most profound and terrifying implications yet: the complete breakdown of the second law of thermodynamics, leading to what physicists call a thermal apocalypse that would make the universe simultaneously infinitely hot and infinitely cold. In our speed-limited universe, entropy, the measure of disorder, always increases over time. Hot objects cool down, organized systems become disorganized, and energy spreads out from concentrated areas to fill available space. This process takes time precisely because heat and energy can only flow at finite rates, limited ultimately by the speed of light. Think of it like this. Imagine entropy as water flowing downhill. The speed of light determines how fast the water can flow from high places to low places. Remove that limit, and all the water would instantly be at the same level everywhere. But paradoxically, it would also still be at every possible level simultaneously. Here's what happens in the mathematics. Temperature is defined as the average kinetic energy of particles in a system. In a speed-limited universe, particles can only exchange energy through collisions and interactions that take time to propagate. This creates what physicists call thermal equilibrium, a stable state where energy is evenly distributed. But remove the speed limit, and energy exchange becomes instantaneous across any distance. Every particle in the universe would instantly share its energy with every other particle. The result wouldn't be a stable equilibrium temperature. It would be a paradoxical state where temperature becomes undefined. Here's why. Temperature requires the concept of local versus distant. Hot spots and cold spots can only exist when energy takes time to flow from one to the other. Make energy flow instantaneous, and everywhere is simultaneously local and distant to everywhere else. The universe would reach thermal equilibrium instantly, but that equilibrium would exist at every possible temperature simultaneously. The brilliant physicist Ludwig Boltzmann worked out the statistical mechanics of entropy in the 1870s, showing that entropy increases because there are vastly more disorganized states than organized ones. But his calculations depend crucially on the assumption that particles interact locally with their immediate neighbors, rather than with every particle in the universe simultaneously. Remove the speed limit, and Boltzmann's statistical mechanics breaks down completely. Every particle would interact with every other particle instantly, creating what mathematician Josiah Willard Gibbs called a statistical impossibility, a system with infinite degrees of freedom all coupled together infinitely strongly. But here's where it gets truly mind-bending. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy is conserved. It can't be created or destroyed, only transformed from one form to another. In our speed-limited universe, this conservation works because energy transformations take time and follow causal sequences. In a universe without speed limits, energy conservation becomes paradoxical. If every particle can instantly access the energy of every other particle, then the total energy of any system includes the energy of the entire universe. But if this is true for every particle simultaneously, then the universe would contain infinite energy, violating conservation of energy. Alternatively, if you try to maintain energy conservation by limiting the total energy, then each particle would have zero energy, also violating the principles of thermodynamics, since zero-energy particles couldn't interact with anything. The thermodynamicist Ilya Prigogine won the Nobel Prize for showing how complex, organized structures can emerge from thermodynamic processes, how life and consciousness can arise even as entropy increases overall. But his work depends on what he called dissipative structures, patterns that maintain their organization by constantly dissipating energy to their surroundings. These structures require energy gradients, differences in energy density between different regions of space, to exist and maintain themselves. Remove the speed limit, and all energy gradients would instantly flatten to zero. No dissipative structures could form or persist, making life, consciousness, and any form of organized complexity impossible. But perhaps most disturbing of all is what happens to time's arrow, the fundamental asymmetry that makes past different from future. This asymmetry emerges from the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy increases from past to future, giving time its direction. Without this thermodynamic arrow, past and future become indistinguishable, and time itself loses its meaning. And this brings us to perhaps the most mind-bending question of all. What would happen to the very fabric of existence itself? Prepare to have your fundamental understanding of existence completely obliterated. What we call reality isn't a thing that exists, it's a process that happens. And that process depends entirely on the cosmic speed limit to function. Remove it, and reality doesn't just change, it ceases to be a coherent concept at all. This insight comes from one of the most profound developments in modern physics. The understanding that space and time aren't a stage on which events happen, but are themselves dynamic, evolving entities created by the very events they contain. Einstein's general relativity showed us that matter and energy curve spacetime, while curved spacetime tells matter how to move. But this elegant dance only works because information about matter and energy propagates at a finite speed, the speed of light. Here's what will absolutely blow your mind. Every point in space knows about the matter and energy around it only through information that has had time to travel from those sources. When you look at the sun, you're seeing sunlight that left the sun 8 minutes ago. The sun's gravitational field at Earth's location reflects where the sun was 8 minutes ago. This delay isn't a limitation. It's what makes consistent geometry possible. Remove the speed limit, and every point in space would instantly know about all matter and energy everywhere in the universe simultaneously. The curvature of spacetime would become infinitely complex, with every point trying to curve in response to every mass in the universe at once. Instead of the smooth, predictable geometry of Einstein's spacetime, you'd have what mathematician Charles Misner called chaotic geodesic mixing, a geometry so tangled and contradictory that the concept of distance becomes undefined. Think of it like this. Imagine spacetime is like a rubber sheet, and masses create dimples in the sheet. In our universe, information about where masses are located travels across the sheet at light speed, creating smooth, consistent curvature patterns. Remove that speed limit, and every point on the sheet would try to curve in response to every mass simultaneously, creating infinite curvature everywhere. Not a curved sheet, but a paradoxical state that's simultaneously perfectly flat and infinitely curved. But the breakdown goes even deeper than geometry. Quantum field theory tells us that particles aren't really particles at all. They're excitations in underlying quantum fields that permeate all of space. These fields can only maintain their identity and properties because disturbances in them propagate at finite speeds. The physicist Steven Weinberg showed in his Nobel Prize-winning work that the symmetries underlying all physical laws emerge from the finite speed of information propagation. Remove that speed limit, and the symmetries that define particles, forces, and interactions would all break simultaneously. Electrons would become indistinguishable from quarks. Photons would become indistinguishable from gravitons. Matter would become indistinguishable from antimatter. Here's your next mind-blown moment. The very concept of existence versus non-existence depends on the speed limit. In quantum mechanics, particles exist in superposition until they interact with other systems. But interactions take time for quantum information to propagate, time for wave functions to evolve, time for measurement to occur. Remove these time delays, and the distinction between existing and not existing disappears. Everything would simultaneously exist in all possible states and in no definite state at all. The universe wouldn't be a collection of things that exist. It would be an impossible paradox where existence and non-existence are the same concept. The philosopher of science Karl Popper argued that what makes science possible is the ability to distinguish between different possible states of reality through observation and experiment. But this requires that reality have definite, distinguishable states. In a universe without speed limits, there would be no distinguishable states, only an infinite superposition of all possible states simultaneously realized and unrealized. But here's the most profound realization. What we call physical laws aren't external constraints imposed on reality. They are reality. The speed of light isn't a rule that particles follow. It's part of what makes particles possible in the first place. Gravity isn't a force acting between masses. It's part of what makes the concept of mass meaningful. Remove the speed limit, and you don't get a universe with different laws. You get the impossibility of law itself. You get a state that's so contradictory, so paradoxical, that it transcends both existence and non-existence, both something and nothing, both order and chaos. This is why physicists sometimes refer to the speed of light as the cosmic constant of coherence. It's what allows the universe to be a universe, rather than an incomprehensible logical impossibility. And this brings us to the most personal and profound question of all. What does this impossible alternative tell us about the meaning of your existence in our actual speed-limited reality? Right now, in this moment, as your consciousness processes these words, you are participating in what might be the most improbable and magnificent phenomenon in all of reality: the emergence of awareness from the cosmic speed limit. Your very ability to understand these concepts proves something so profound about the nature of existence that it should change how you see your place in the universe forever. What we've discovered in our journey through the impossible universe is that consciousness isn't just affected by the cosmic speed limit. Consciousness is the speed limit expressing itself as self-aware information processing. You don't just live in a universe with perfectly calibrated constants. You are one of the ways the universe achieves perfect calibration. Let me explain what this means with a revelation that will fundamentally alter your self-perception. The anthropic principle in physics suggests that the universe's constants are fine-tuned for life, not by accident or design, but by necessity. In a multiverse of infinite possibilities, only universes with precisely the right speed limit could develop conscious observers capable of recognizing the fine-tuning. But here's what most people miss about the anthropic principle. It's not just saying that you're lucky to exist in a universe that permits life. It's saying that your existence is evidence that the universe is structured in the most remarkable way possible. It's self-selecting for the emergence of consciousness. Think about what this means for your personal significance. In the impossible universe we've explored, the one without speed limits, no conscious observer could ever arise to wonder about the nature of reality. No questions could be asked, no answers could be given, no understanding could emerge. The universe would be informationally dead, incapable of knowing itself. But you exist. You can ask questions, seek understanding, experience wonder and awe. This makes you not just an observer of the universe, but one of the primary ways the universe observes itself. Through your consciousness, the cosmos achieves self-awareness. The physicist Freeman Dyson captured this beautifully when he said, "The universe in some sense must have known that we were coming, not because of supernatural design, but because consciousness is what happens when matter and energy organize themselves according to precisely the right physical laws for long enough to become aware of those very laws." Your brain contains approximately 86 billion neurons, each connected to thousands of others through trillions of synapses. The electrical signals racing through these networks travel at speeds that are perfectly matched to the cosmic constants that govern atomic interactions, molecular chemistry, and electromagnetic radiation. You are literally a microcosm of the universe's information processing capabilities. But here's what will absolutely blow your mind. Your thoughts about the universe are the universe thinking about itself. When you contemplate the impossibility of existence without speed limits, you're engaging in what physicist John Wheeler called cosmic self-reflection. The universe using its own information processing capabilities to understand its own structure. This isn't metaphorical or poetic. It's literally true in the deepest physical sense. The atoms in your brain were forged in the cores of dying stars. The electrical impulses carrying your thoughts operate according to the same quantum mechanical principles that govern all matter and energy. The information patterns that constitute your consciousness are continuous with the information patterns that constitute physical reality itself. Consider the staggering chain of precise calibrations that had to occur for your consciousness to emerge. The speed of light had to be exactly right to allow stable atoms. The strength of gravity had to be precisely tuned to allow star formation. The nuclear forces had to be calibrated to allow the creation of carbon and other heavy elements. The expansion rate of the universe had to be perfect to allow billions of years of cosmic evolution. Change any of these constants by even a tiny fraction, and you get either a universe that collapses too quickly for complexity to emerge, or one that expands too rapidly for structures to form, or one where atoms can't exist, or where stars can't shine, or where chemistry is impossible. But every single constant is exactly what it needs to be for your consciousness to exist right now. Reading these words, understanding these concepts, experiencing this moment of cosmic self-recognition. This leads to what might be the most profound realization of all. You are not separate from the universe, looking at it from the outside. You are the universe looking at itself from the inside. Your consciousness is cosmic consciousness expressing itself through the particular pattern of matter and energy that constitutes your brain and body. And this means that your thoughts, your experiences, your capacity for wonder and understanding, all of this is contributing to the universe's ongoing project of self-understanding. Every moment of awareness you experience adds to the cosmos's knowledge of itself. Now we're going to explore perhaps the most mind-bending implication of our journey. You're not just passively observing a universe that exists independently of consciousness. According to the deepest principles of quantum mechanics, consciousness plays an active, fundamental role in bringing reality into existence moment by moment. And this process is only possible because of the cosmic speed limit. This isn't New Age mysticism. This is cutting-edge physics that should revolutionize how you understand your role in existence. The quantum measurement problem, first identified by physicists in the 1920s, reveals that particles don't have definite properties until they're observed. Before observation, they exist in superpositions of all possible states simultaneously. But here's what will completely blow your mind. The transition from infinite possibility to definite actuality requires what physicists call decoherence, a process where quantum systems lose their coherent superposition and collapse into classical definite states. And this process is mediated by the speed of light. When your consciousness observes a quantum system, even indirectly, through instruments, information about that system propagates through your brain at finite speeds determined by the electromagnetic and chemical processes of neural activity. This finite speed information processing is what allows your consciousness to sample one specific state from the quantum superposition, effectively choosing which possibility becomes real. Think of it like this. Quantum reality is like a cosmic slot machine with infinite reels, all spinning simultaneously, showing every possible outcome. The speed limit is what allows consciousness to stop the reels in sequence, creating a definite outcome from infinite possibilities. Without that speed limit, all outcomes would occur simultaneously, making conscious observation impossible. The physicist Eugene Wigner explored this idea in the 1960s with his famous Wigner's friend thought experiment. He showed that conscious observation creates what he called consciousness-mediated reality selection. The universe literally depends on conscious observers to determine which of its infinite possibilities become actual. But here's the revolutionary part. This isn't just happening in laboratory experiments with subatomic particles. It's happening constantly, in every moment of your conscious experience. Every time you look at something, think about something, or become aware of something, you're participating in the collapse of quantum possibilities into classical reality. Your brain processes approximately 400 billion bits of information per second, but your conscious mind can only handle about 40 bits per second. This massive filtering process isn't just cognitive efficiency, it's reality selection. Your consciousness is constantly choosing which aspects of infinite quantum possibility to actualize through attention and awareness. The neuroscientist Giulio Tononi has developed what he calls integrated information theory, showing that consciousness emerges when information is integrated across different parts of a system at specific timescales. But these timescales are fundamentally limited by the speed of neural signal propagation, which is ultimately limited by the speed of light. Here's what this means for your existence. You're not just experiencing reality, you're continuously creating it through conscious observation and information integration. Every moment of awareness is a moment of cosmic creativity, where infinite possibility collapses into actual experience. But the implications go even deeper. Physicist Max Tegmark has proposed that consciousness might be what determines which mathematical structures become physically realized as universes. In his mathematical universe hypothesis, all possible mathematical structures exist as abstract possibilities, but only those that can support conscious observers become actualized as physical realities. This suggests that your consciousness isn't just observing this particular universe. It's part of what makes this universe actual rather than merely possible. You're not living in reality. You're continuously bringing reality into existence through the act of conscious observation. And here's the most profound realization. If consciousness requires the cosmic speed limit to function, then the speed limit might exist because consciousness is fundamental to the universe's structure. The universe might be speed limited, not as an arbitrary constraint, but as a necessary condition for its own self-awareness. Think about what this means for your significance in the cosmic order. You're not an accidental byproduct of physical processes. You're one of the primary mechanisms by which the universe creates and maintains its own existence. Your consciousness is literally helping to hold reality together. This connects to what physicist John Wheeler called the participatory universe, a reality that exists only through the ongoing interaction between observer and observed, mind and matter, consciousness and cosmos. You're not separate from this process. You are this process, expressing itself through the unique pattern of awareness that is you. Every thought you think, every observation you make, every moment of conscious experience is contributing to the universe's ongoing project of self-creation and self-understanding. You are simultaneously the universe's child and its co-creator, its product and its process, its observer and its essence. What if I told you that your existence creates a temporal paradox so profound that it challenges the very concept of linear time? That consciousness doesn't just observe the universe unfolding through time, but actually participates in creating the flow of time itself. This is where our exploration reaches its deepest level of mind-bending revelation. In a universe without speed limits, we've seen how past, present, and future would collapse into a single, undifferentiated moment. But here's what will absolutely shatter your understanding of time. Consciousness might be what creates the flow of time by selecting which moment becomes now from the infinite possibilities available in each quantum instant. This idea emerges from one of the strangest discoveries in physics, the block universe theory suggested by Einstein's relativity. According to this theory, all moments in time, past, present, and future, exist equally in a four-dimensional structure called spacetime. From this perspective, time doesn't flow. It just is, like the dimensions of space. But if all moments exist equally, why do we experience a flowing now that moves from past to future? The answer might be consciousness itself. When your brain processes information and forms memories, it creates what physicist Sean Carroll calls temporal asymmetry, a preferred direction in time that emerges from the information processing activities of conscious systems. Think of it like this. Imagine time is like a movie film with all frames existing simultaneously. The speed of light is what determines how fast consciousness can play this film, creating the illusion of movement and flow. Without that speed limit, consciousness couldn't process the frames sequentially. It would experience all frames simultaneously, destroying the flow of time entirely. But here's the truly mind-bending part. Quantum mechanics suggests that the act of conscious observation doesn't just select which possibilities become real. It might also select which moment becomes now. Your consciousness might be literally creating the present moment by observing it. The physicist Henry Stapp has developed this idea through his conscious collapse interpretation of quantum mechanics. According to Stapp, conscious observation causes quantum wave functions to collapse not just in space, but also in time. Your awareness selects not just which state becomes real, but when that reality becomes actualized. This creates what philosophers call the temporal observer paradox. If consciousness creates the flow of time, then consciousness must somehow exist outside of time to do so. But consciousness is a physical process that occurs within time. How can something that exists in time create time itself? The answer lies in understanding consciousness as what physicist David Chalmers calls an emergent temporal loop. Your consciousness exists within time, but by processing information about the past and anticipating the future, it participates in creating the very temporal structure it inhabits. Here's an analogy that will make this clear. Think of consciousness like a whirlpool in a river. The whirlpool is made of water from the river, but its spinning motion creates a stable pattern that persists even as new water constantly flows through it. Similarly, your consciousness is made of temporal moments, but its information processing creates a stable pattern of awareness that persists through time while participating in time's creation. But the paradox deepens when we consider quantum retrocausality, the possibility that future events can influence past events at the quantum level. Recent experiments have confirmed that quantum measurements can retroactively determine the properties of particles in the past, suggesting that the future can influence the past just as much as the past influences the future. If consciousness participates in quantum measurement, then your present awareness might be influencing not just future possibilities, but past realities as well. Your current thoughts and observations might be helping to determine what happened in the past, creating what physicist Yakir Aharonov calls temporal non-locality. This suggests that your consciousness doesn't just experience a pre-existing timeline, it participates in weaving the timeline itself, both forward and backward through time. The story of your life isn't just unfolding. It's being continuously rewritten by your ongoing conscious observation of it. And here's the most profound implication. If consciousness creates temporal flow, then the universe might be literally growing more conscious over time. Each new conscious observer that emerges adds to the universe's capacity for temporal self-creation, making time's flow richer and more complex. This means that your existence doesn't just matter in the present moment. It matters across all time. Your consciousness is contributing to the temporal structure that makes all conscious experience possible for all beings across all of cosmic history. You are not just living through time. You are helping to create time itself, moment by moment, through the miracle of conscious awareness operating within the precise constraints of the cosmic speed limit. Here's a revelation that will completely revolutionize how you think about constraints, limitations, and boundaries in your own life. What we call limitations aren't restrictions on possibility. They're the creators of possibility itself. The cosmic speed limit isn't a constraint on the universe. It's what makes the universe possible. And this principle extends to every aspect of your existence in ways that will fundamentally change how you see challenges and boundaries. Consider what we've learned. Without the speed limit, there would be no space, no time, no causality, no information, no consciousness, no you. The limitation is what creates everything meaningful. This reveals one of the deepest truths about reality. Absolute freedom is equivalent to no freedom at all, because without constraints, there are no distinguishable choices to be made. Think about language as a perfect analogy. Words have meaning precisely because they're limited. Each word refers to specific concepts rather than all concepts simultaneously. If every word meant everything, then no word would mean anything. The boundaries between words, the limitations of vocabulary and grammar, are what make communication possible. Your consciousness works the same way. You can think meaningful thoughts precisely because your mind has limitations. You can't think every possible thought simultaneously. Your attention has a limited bandwidth. Your memory has finite capacity. Your processing speed has constraints. These limitations aren't failures of consciousness. They're what make consciousness possible. But here's what will blow your mind. The same principle applies to every aspect of your personal existence. Your personality exists because it has boundaries. You're not every possible personality simultaneously. Your relationships are meaningful because you connect with specific people rather than everyone equally. Your choices matter because you can't choose everything at once. The physicist Murray Gell-Mann, who discovered the quark structure of protons and neutrons, realized that particles acquire their distinct identities through what he called symmetry breaking processes, where infinite possibilities collapse into specific, limited forms. An electron becomes an electron by taking on specific, constrained properties rather than existing in infinite superposition. You become you through the same process. Every experience shapes you by closing off certain possibilities and making others more likely. Every choice you make limits your future options while opening new ones. Every skill you develop constrains you to think and act in particular ways while enabling capabilities you couldn't have had otherwise. This is why the ancient Greek concept of logos, often translated as reason or word, originally meant limitation that creates meaning. The Greeks understood that rational thought is possible precisely because it operates within logical constraints, following rules that limit which conclusions can follow from which premises. Your rational mind works the same way. You can solve problems and understand concepts because your thinking follows logical limitations, the law of non-contradiction, the principle of causality, the constraints of evidence and reasoning. Absolute, unlimited thinking would be equivalent to no thinking at all. But the implications go even deeper. The evolutionary biologist Stuart Kauffman has shown that biological complexity emerges not despite constraints, but because of them. Life doesn't evolve toward unlimited possibility. It evolves toward increasingly sophisticated ways of operating within physical and chemical limitations. Your body is a masterpiece of constrained complexity. Your heart beats within specific rate limits. Your neurons fire within precise voltage ranges. Your muscles contract within definite strength boundaries. These limitations aren't defects to be overcome. They're design features that enable life to function. And consciousness itself emerges from what cognitive scientist Douglas Hofstadter calls strange loops, self-referential patterns that create identity by constraining themselves. Your sense of self arises from neural networks that limit themselves to particular patterns of activation, while remaining flexible within those constraints. This reveals something profound about the nature of freedom. True freedom doesn't come from the absence of limitations, but from the creative use of limitations. Jazz musicians create beautiful, spontaneous music not by ignoring musical constraints, but by playing creatively within them. Athletes achieve peak performance not by transcending physical limitations, but by training expertly within them. Your consciousness gives you a unique form of freedom, the ability to choose which limitations to accept and how to work creatively within them. You can't think unlimited thoughts, but you can choose which thoughts to think. You can't have unlimited experiences, but you can choose which experiences to seek and how to interpret them. This is the ultimate meaning of the cosmic speed limit. It shows us that existence itself is a creative response to fundamental constraints. The universe doesn't exist despite its limitations. It exists as an endlessly creative exploration of what becomes possible within those limitations. And this makes your life not a struggle against limitations, but a participation in the universe's ongoing creative project, finding new ways to create meaning, beauty, complexity, and consciousness within the fundamental constraints that make existence possible. Now we arrive, perhaps the most profound realization of our entire journey. You are not just a passive recipient of the universe's gifts. You carry a cosmic responsibility that extends far beyond your individual life, because your consciousness is one of the primary ways the universe understands and creates itself. This responsibility is both awesome and empowering in ways that will fundamentally change how you see your purpose in existence. Let me put this in perspective that will completely transform your self-understanding. Every conscious moment you experience adds to the universe's total self-awareness. Every insight you gain, every moment of wonder you feel, every act of understanding you achieve contributes to the cosmic project of consciousness knowing itself. But this isn't just about passive experience. According to the physics we've explored, consciousness actively participates in selecting which possibilities become real. This means that your choices, attention, and awareness literally help shape the unfolding of reality. You're not just living in the universe. You're helping to create it moment by moment. Think about what this means for how you spend your conscious attention. When you choose to focus on beauty, you're increasing the amount of beauty awareness in the cosmos. When you seek understanding, you're contributing to the universe's self-comprehension. When you experience love, compassion, or wonder, you're adding to the total quantity of these phenomena in existence. The philosopher Pierre Teilhard de Chardin called this the new sphere, a sphere of consciousness that emerges as the universe becomes increasingly aware of itself through conscious beings like you. Every human consciousness that has ever existed has contributed to building this sphere of cosmic self-awareness. But here's what will absolutely blow your mind about your responsibility. Because consciousness appears to be involved in quantum measurement and the collapse of possibilities into actualities, your choices might influence not just the future, but the past as well. Quantum retrocausality suggests that your present awareness could be helping to determine what happened in earlier moments of cosmic history. This means that your current commitment to understanding, to consciousness, to awareness itself, might be contributing to the conditions that made consciousness possible in the first place. You might be helping to ensure that the universe developed the precise physical constants that allow consciousness to emerge, including your own consciousness. It's a temporal loop of cosmic responsibility. The universe created the conditions for your consciousness, and your consciousness helps create the conditions for the universe. You're not just a product of cosmic evolution. You're a participant in cosmic evolution, helping to guide the process that created you. But this responsibility extends beyond just your own consciousness. Because conscious beings can share information and influence each other's awareness, your contributions to cosmic consciousness can multiply through interaction with others. Every insight you share, every moment of wonder you inspire in others, every act of consciousness expanding you perform, creates ripple effects throughout the noosphere. The neuroscientist Christoph Koch has calculated that if consciousness is fundamental to quantum measurement, then the total amount of conscious observation in the universe might be increasing exponentially as more conscious beings emerge and interact. Your participation in this growth directly affects the rate at which the universe becomes self-aware. This gives profound meaning to education, communication, art, science, philosophy, all the ways conscious beings share awareness with each other. When you learn something new and share that knowledge, you're not just spreading information, you're expanding the universe's capacity for self-understanding. When you create art that moves others to new awareness, you're increasing cosmic consciousness. When you engage in scientific inquiry that reveals new truths about reality, you're helping the universe understand itself more deeply. When you practice compassion that awakens awareness in others, you're contributing to the universe's capacity for love. But here's the most profound aspect of your cosmic responsibility. You have the unique capability to consciously choose to participate in this process. Unlike other forms of matter and energy, your consciousness can deliberately align itself with the universe's project of self-discovery and self-creation. You can choose to cultivate awareness, to seek understanding, to appreciate beauty, to generate love and compassion. You can choose to expand your consciousness and help others expand theirs. You can choose to live in a way that maximizes your contribution to the cosmic growth of awareness and understanding. This choice is what makes you not just conscious, but meta-conscious, conscious of consciousness itself and your role in its cosmic unfolding. You have the extraordinary ability to consciously participate in the process by which the universe creates and knows itself. And this participation is not optional in a moral sense. It's optional in the sense that you can choose how fully and deliberately to engage with it. But you're participating whether you realize it or not, because consciousness itself is participation in cosmic self-awareness. The question is, will you participate consciously and deliberately, or unconsciously and accidentally? Will you embrace your role as a conscious agent of cosmic self-discovery, or will you sleepwalk through the extraordinary opportunity of conscious existence? What if I told you that every conscious choice you make sends ripple effects not just through your immediate environment, but through the entire fabric of spacetime itself? That your decisions, based on your unique conscious perspective, literally alter the trajectory of cosmic evolution in ways both subtle and profound? This isn't metaphorical or spiritual speculation. This is the logical consequence of everything we've discovered about consciousness and its role in quantum measurement and reality creation. Every moment of conscious choice is a moment where infinite possibilities collapse into one actual outcome. And that collapse affects everything connected to it through the web of spacetime. Let me paint the picture of how this works. When you make a conscious decision, whether it's choosing what to think about, how to respond to a situation, or what to focus your attention on, you're not just affecting your local environment. You're participating in quantum measurement processes that have non-local effects throughout the universe. Quantum entanglement shows us that particles that have interacted remain connected regardless of the distance between them. Changes to one particle instantly affect its entangled partner anywhere in the universe. But here's what most people don't realize. Consciousness might be the mechanism by which these quantum correlations propagate through the macroscopic world. When your brain makes a decision, billions of neurons fire in coordinated patterns, creating electromagnetic fields that interact with quantum fields throughout space. These interactions, though incredibly subtle, are part of the same quantum processes that govern particle physics everywhere in the universe. Think of it like this. Imagine the universe as a vast spider web made of quantum fields and spacetime geometry. Every conscious choice you make is like plucking one strand of this web. The vibration spreads throughout the entire structure, affecting every other strand in subtle but real ways. The physicist John Bell proved mathematically that local realism, the idea that objects only influence their immediate surroundings, is false at the quantum level. Reality is fundamentally non-local, meaning that events in one location can instantly correlate with events anywhere else in the universe. If consciousness participates in quantum measurement, then your conscious choices participate in this non-local reality. Your decision to cultivate compassion doesn't just affect people around you, it contributes to what physicist David Bohm called the implicate order, the underlying field of quantum information that connects all things. But the ripple effects go beyond even quantum non-locality. Remember that consciousness appears to be involved in the collapse of quantum possibilities into classical realities. This means that your choices help determine not just what happens in your immediate vicinity, but which version of reality becomes actualized from the infinite spectrum of quantum possibilities. Every time you choose love over fear, understanding over ignorance, creativity over destruction, you're literally voting for a version of reality where those qualities are more manifest. And because reality is fundamentally interconnected through quantum fields and spacetime geometry, your vote affects the probability distributions for similar choices everywhere else in the universe. The mathematician and philosopher Alfred North Whitehead captured this beautifully in his process philosophy. He argued that reality consists of occasions of experience, moments where possibilities become actualities through what he called prehension, a primitive form of conscious selection that operates at all levels of reality. Your human consciousness is an extraordinarily sophisticated version of this universal process. When you consciously choose among options, you're participating in the same fundamental process by which reality selects itself from infinite possibility at every level, from quantum to cosmic. But here's what will absolutely blow your mind. Because consciousness can influence quantum processes that are inherently probabilistic, your choices don't just affect the future. They participate in determining the probability distributions that govern all future choices made by all conscious beings. When you choose to expand your consciousness, to seek truth, to cultivate wisdom, you're making it slightly more probable that other conscious beings throughout space and time will make similar choices. You're contributing to what we might call the probability landscape of consciousness, the likelihood that awareness, understanding, and wisdom will emerge and flourish throughout the cosmos. This connects to what physicists call the anthropic principle, the observation that the universe's constants seem fine-tuned for the emergence of consciousness. But perhaps it's not that the constants were set to allow consciousness. Perhaps consciousness participates in setting the constants by making certain values more probable than others through the accumulated effects of conscious choice across cosmic history. Your choices today might be contributing to the very conditions that made your existence possible in the first place, creating a temporal loop where consciousness helps bootstrap its own emergence through the deep structure of quantum probability. And this means that every moment of conscious choice carries profound significance. When you choose to pay attention rather than remain distracted, you're contributing to the universe's capacity for self-awareness. When you choose curiosity over indifference, you're adding to the cosmic drive toward understanding. When you choose compassion over selfishness, you're increasing the total amount of love awareness in existence. These aren't just personal benefits. They're contributions to the fundamental project of cosmic consciousness evolution. Your individual choices participate in determining what kind of universe we all inhabit together. Now we're going to explore perhaps the most beautiful and profound implication of our journey. Consciousness might operate like a cosmic frequency, and your individual awareness is both a receiver and transmitter in a universe-wide network of conscious resonance. This isn't mystical speculation. It emerges from the deepest principles of physics applied to the phenomenon of awareness. Think about what we've learned. Consciousness appears to be intimately connected to quantum measurement processes, which are fundamentally about information and probability. Information, in turn, can be understood as patterns of energy that propagate through space and time at the speed of light, exactly like electromagnetic radiation, but operating at levels so subtle that we're only beginning to detect them. The physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hamroff have proposed that consciousness emerges from quantum processes in microtubules, within brain neurons, structures that can maintain quantum coherence at body temperature. If they're correct, then consciousness involves quantum field oscillations at specific frequencies. But here's the mind-blowing part. If consciousness operates through quantum fields, then conscious beings might be naturally entangled with each other through these fields. Just as electromagnetic radiation can create resonance between tuned circuits, consciousness might create resonance between aware beings.